Hey witches, welcome to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy, a magical living podcast for the busy witch. I'm Morgan, eclectic witch of almost 25 years, Avalon priestess, and busy witch. Here we'll talk all things witchy, from current metaphysical happenings to my busy witch tips and tricks, and everything in the in-between. This podcast is my personal journey, filled with my knowledge, opinions, and unique way of looking at the world. Join me as I weave the magical and the mundane in every episode. Hey witches, welcome back to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy. I'm Morgan, and today I'm talking about herbal magic. Spring is so close. The official first day of spring this year is March 19th. It's normally like the 20th or the 21st, but leap day screwed that up. Many witches plant a garden. If nothing else, the world is reawakening. You're seeing plants start to grow, flowers start to bloom. If you're a homesteader or have a farm or something, there's little baby animals being born, and everybody's just basically reemerging and reawakening after hibernating for the winter. And as herbs become abundant, or as you plant herb gardens and they start to grow, then things like herbal magic are really kind of amped up starting in the spring. Now, while I'm going to go into some general information about herbal magic, I figure that you all can Google most of that kind of stuff yourself. So if you just want generalized information, this is not the podcast for you. You all are here on my podcast, so you're going to get my tips and tricks and my uses for herbs in magic. Now, I am not a certified herbalist. That's the first disclaimer. The second disclaimer is I have a black thumb, so I don't grow my own herbs. So if you are looking for tips or tricks on how to grow an herb garden, I'm not going to be able to help you with that at all in any way, shape, or form. And I'm just going to give you my tips and what I do. So definitely, if you want to get into using herbs for things like medicinal purposes or tinctures or salves or anything like that, you need to either become a certified herbalist or at least consult with one before using herbs internally. We're going to be talking mostly about magical applications of herbs because that's what I have been doing for 20 years. Okay, so a little bit of background into herbal magic. Herbs have been used since the beginning of time for medicinal and spiritual uses across the globe. It's very hard to pinpoint who started using herbs first because it was just a global thing of using the plants around you. And then depending on your culture, whether you're using them for medicinal reasons or spiritual reasons or a combination of the two, because a lot of cultures weaved the mundane and the magical together. So just for two different examples, the ancient Egyptians used herbs for medicinal and spiritual purposes because they were one of the cultures that weaved the two together. And then ancient Druids also used herbs for medicinal and spiritual. And so we're talking like thousands of years ago. Thousands, okay? So as far as herbal magic is concerned, the thought behind it is that every herb contains energy that can be used for medicinal or spiritual applications. Keep in mind that like for like applies here heavily. And I do talk about like for like. So if an object can be used for something in real life, it can be used for the same thing in magic, like for like. So that philosophy applies heavily here. If an herb is great for like detoxing the blood or the body, like dandelion, okay? Great detox tea. I think it's a liver detox and then just get sludge out of you. It can also be used for cleansing metaphysically. So you can definitely add it to your cleansing floor washes or any kind of herbal blend that you are smoke cleansing with. Dandelion is a great one to use there. Now, don't trust the reverse of that because every herb should be analyzed before taking it internally. Okay, for a great example, mandrake is a wonderful herb for protection. but it is also highly poisonous. So you can use it in your protection. Herbal blends, like if you want to make an herbal blend and sprinkle it around your house for protection, by all means, use some dried mandrake, but don't drink a tea of it, especially if you're not a certified herbalist or you have not consulted one. So as far as like for like, use it one way, like the medicinal also equals the metaphysical, but question the reverse. Metaphysical equals medicinal, because a lot of herbs that are really good for magical purposes should not be taken internally. So going one step further into that, many cultures believe that herbs have a vibrational frequency that resonates with the vibrational frequencies in the body. For example, your stomach area has a vibrational level that is the same as the vibrational level of ginger or peppermint. So if you have a stomach upset, which is then a disruption in that vibrational energy, drinking ginger or peppermint tea at that same vibrational level will actually smooth out the vibrational disruption, if that makes sense. So that's where the idea of like for like came about. It also goes really deep into shamanism, Native American, medicinal purposes, but even just culturally for medicinal purposes. A lot of diseases or a lot of illnesses can also be cured by the herbs in the area. So the environment could cause a reaction, but it can also cure the reaction, if that makes sense. That's a belief that goes back thousands of years as well. Again, though, disclaimer, if you are not a certified herbalist, please by all means consult one before taking herbs internally, especially if you're on any kind of medication or if you're pregnant or anything like that. All right. So for me, I have been practicing herbal magic for about 20 years now. I learned a lot about herbs in England when my husband was stationed in England, and I just kept studying it over and over again for 20 years. I do have a black thumb. I mentioned that earlier. So I don't usually grow my own. I buy them pre-dried from a store like my own. I usually just take a little bit of stuff, as stuff comes in, I'll take a little bit home with me. But this is a fun little thing that has happened recently. So with the warming of the weather, my husband and I got out in the backyard and started cleaning it up a little bit from the winter. And I noticed that we had 3 distinct weeds. I'll say it as it is. I noticed we had 3 distinct weeds growing in our yard in abundance. So I downloaded one of those plant identifier apps and I scanned them. One of them is called London Rocket, and it has metaphysical properties. So all herbs, plants, everything have metaphysical properties. You just got to look them up. So one of them is London Rocket, which is great for protection against curses, and also cursing and hexing people. And I was like, oh my God. And it is literally growing. Some of them are over a foot tall in our yard because we got a lot of rain during the winter. And yeah, so I was like, oh my God. So I harvested some. I pulled them up. I gave my thanks, and I am drying them now. Another one was wild lettuce, or it's also called prickly lettuce, which is great for divination and insomnia as well, for medicinal property of it. But it is great for psychic abilities and developing your intuition and developing your all of that, the psychic third eye opener, divination, all of that. I was like, holy crap. And then the third one, which we had a little bit less of, was just some generic mallow. But when I looked up that, it was really good for cleansing and grounding. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and harvest some of that too. So for the first time in my life, I literally pulled weeds out of my backyard and then hung them up to dry. And I plan on grinding them up and keeping them for whatever I need them for. That's the first bit of full on green witchcraft I've ever done in my life. I also found out that this is called urban witchcraft because I do live in the city of Tucson. So finding weeds in my backyard and then harvesting them. Very urban witch thing to do, which made me laugh, but it made me really happy. And here they are, like people just weed them, throw them out. They'll spray pesticides on them, whatever. And I was like, hold on, let me look at things first. So look around at what you have. If you happen to live in an apartment complex and the landscapers don't always come out immediately, download one of those plant identifier apps to your phone, take a picture of the herb, and then it's going to have some kind of metaphysical properties. If you just want to pull some up, dry it, and then you can use it for your own. So there you go. But if you are looking for growing or harvesting advice, that is not me. I don't even know if I dried these herbs quote unquote correctly, but it worked. So I'm going with it. So how do I personally use herbs in magic? I add them to mists and oils to infuse those properties into the mist or oil. I do use a lot of essential oils, which are the concentrated oil version of the herb. I use essential oils to make our oils, like our spell oils and perfume oils here at the shop. I use them to make our mists. I do add them to bath blends, like I add them to bath salts. I heavily use essential oils in cleaning my home, and then I will use essential oils in salves as well. Aromatherapy is like another side thing because it can be used for magical purposes, but oil scents also have their own properties. For example, orange is very uplifting, and peppermint and lavender have been my go-to blend together for headaches for years. So that's a good one. Just smelling it, like I put it into a roller bottle, into a carrier oil, and then you can just roll it on your temples, or you can just kind of smell, put it on your upper lip. So you always have it there to smell, but that's been my go-to headache relief forever. And then things like lavender and chamomile for sleep. So you can put those into a carrier oil as well and roll it on before bed. So that's the use of essential oils, and as far as using them in aromatherapy. I make teas with herbs, and yes, I will do medicinal teas, but I will also do metaphysical teas. So for example, my go-to for when I have an upset stomach is peppermint. And then for like a magical example, anything red, like a red tea, which is going to be hibiscus. If you want to ground your energy, if you really want to activate your stability, your root chakra, drink a red tea. So drink a tea with hibiscus in it because it will brew red. And then I use like jasmine green tea if I want to do third eye work. So that's how I use herbs for both metaphysical and medicinal purposes. I also use herbs in incense. This is a big one for me. This is how I started using herbs, was making whole herbal blends, using like all like the chunky ones that look like an herbal blend, and then you burn them on a charcoal disc. Then I kind of upgraded to making the herbal blends and grinding them down into a powder form because it's just a little easier for them to combine together, but it's also easier to burn on a charcoal disc. But this is how I got my start in Herbal Magic. I would blend herbs for a magical purpose and then burn them on a disc. Now, if you're going to blend herbs to burn, then make sure the herbs can be breathed in. That's another one. You definitely don't want to add a toxic herb to your incense blend and then sit there and breathe in the fumes of it. If you're going to leave it whole, like you're going to leave it as a herb mixture that you can burn, then you're going to need a binder in there. So you're either going to need a resin or an essential oil. At least that's what I learned 20 years ago. That kind of binds all of the herbs together into one scent. Then if you are grinding, if you're taking that herb blend and then grinding it down into a powder form, a coffee grinder works beautifully for that. There's my little hack there. I do not get a fine powder that you'll find in, like, if you buy one of our full moon kits, you get a powdered blend of herbs that is hand blended by us and then put into a coffee grinder to get that really good grind on it to turn it into a powder. Now, definitely have a separate coffee grinder for your herbs than you do your coffee. And we even have separate grinders in the shop One of them for metaphysical incenses, and the other one is for our culinary blends. Even though we thoroughly wash them in between uses, I don't ever double duty one, because like we could be grinding up something that maybe you don't want to eat, but it's okay to burn. There are some herbs out there that are fine, so you can add them to your incense blends, but you don't want to make a tea of them. So I definitely have two different grinders here, one for culinary or internal herbs, things that we'll use internally, and another one for just regular incense. I also use herbs in spell jars, bags, and envelope spells. So I would create an herb blend for a specific intention and then add it to the jars, bags, or envelopes. And then I personally do cook or bake with herbs. I am a kitchen witch at heart. When I was a stay-at-home mom, I cooked and cleaned all the time. That's all I did. And I really got into using herbs and things like edible flowers. That is another fun one. A lot of flowers can be eaten, and they are so beautiful when you add them to a salad or you add them to a cupcake. And to differentiate between the two, I would highly recommend going to probably, I don't know if your local grocery store, like a regular old grocery store, is going to have it, but I have found them at like a Whole Foods type, a hoity-toity type grocery store in the produce section. So where they have the herbs that are cut up, like the fresh herbs in the little plastic containers, a lot of places will have edible flowers as well. And that way you know that they were grown to be eaten. So they're going to be grown without pesticides. They weren't harvested from a place where a dog peed on them. You know what I mean? But things like lavender, rose, they can be eaten. And so especially with the coming of spring and all these flowers in bloom, you're going to start to see edible flowers pop up at your local grocery store. Hopefully you will. And so cooking with herbs and even flowers was something that I really started to do, because different flowers have different metaphysical properties as well. So it's a really fun extra added flavor, for one, like a unique flavor that you're adding. But when you're cooking, you're cooking to make people happy and to nourish people. But if you can add magical energy to that as well, then it's just an added bonus. So I have always used herbs and even flowers in my cooking and baking. I do get asked a lot, can I use the herbs and spices found at the grocery store? Abso-fucking-lutely. You 100% can. Many of you have an entire herb garden in your pantry and you don't even utilize it, because I have been asked before, well, don't I have to buy my herbs from a witch shop if I want to use them for magical purposes? You do not. You absolutely don't. You can get the stuff. McCormick makes a wonderful line of spices and they're witchy as hell. That basil that's already dried on the kitchen on the shelf at the grocery store can definitely be used, because it costs $3 for a huge ass bottle, and you don't have to go and get basil, the fresh basil from the produce. You don't have to. Or you don't have to grow it in your garden. Use the shit that you already have that you're cooking with every single day. And I can say this, all of the herbs you have in your spice cabinet, the herbs and spices, they all have metaphysical properties. Even the weird ones, if you were to break them down. Like if you have an Italian seasoning blend, that's generally oregano, basil, garlic, onion. All four of those have metaphysical properties. So if you're making pizza or you're making spaghetti sauce, when you sprinkle that stuff in, just think, oh, I'm sprinkling in this Italian seasoning for protection and healing for my family. Bam, you're a kitchen witch now. And while I do 100% tell you, go buy your stuff at the grocery store, there is nothing wrong with that. There are going to be spell ingredients that you want or herbs that you want that you're not going to be able to find at the Safeway or at the Walmart. And that is where I do ask that you buy from a reputable dealer, just so that you know what you're getting is good, not covered with pesticides, where it was sourced ethically, all that good stuff. And if you need a reputable dealer, you can head to inkgoddesscreations.com where we sell all kinds of dried herbs. You can pick your own, make a little bundle. Anyway, okay, shameless plug done. All right, so in a few weeks, I'm going to be sharing my favorite herbs for magic. So stay tuned for that episode. See, this is what happens when I decide to take the podcast super fucking seriously. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to plan out episodes for the upcoming weeks. I have another episode here in about 2 weeks that will be my favorite herbs for magic. And I have some really fun blends for you all in that one. So that's what I have for you all today. Our Ink Goddess Creations box is Herbal Witch for the month of April. So that's what's going to be on sale for the entire month of March. And we're giving everyone tools to practice herbal magic. So our box has been around now. It was started in 2016. So 8 years. And we have watched a lot of our competitors rise and then go away. And we're still here, and I love that we're still here, and I feel like we're upping our game all the freaking time. We're planning boxes earlier and earlier and earlier so we can create the perfect products for them. So yeah, the Herbal Witch box is on sale now at inkedgoddesscreations.com. If you get your orders in before April 1st, you can start a subscription, and it's also free shipping within the US. So if you want to start practicing some herbal magic, we're giving you the tools that make that a little bit easier. This month in the Ink Spirit Coven too, we are working with the element of air. We're doing the whole Rewilding Your Inner Witch program. We're starting that now. You can join at any time, but we're going to be working seasonally with the elements. And we're starting with the element of air for setting powerful intentions. We have a witches knot, K-N-O-T, workshop coming up here soon. And it's just such a beautiful community. I do teach the classes and facilitate the workshops. So if you would like to learn more about that, head to inkedspirit.com and you can join us then. I want to thank you all for listening, for giving me a platform to share my knowledge and to be myself. And until next time, I will see you all then. Bye.